Welcome to the Fear and Greed Daily Interview. I'm Sean Aylmer. Scams seem to be everywhere right now, from fake toll road text messages to endless recorded calls claiming to be from Amazon or PayPal or the tax office. They're a little hard to avoid. It might come as a bit of a surprise then to learn that many Australians aren't aware of the dangers of cyber criminals. New research by National Australia Bank shows young people aged 18 to 29 are the least concerned about becoming a victim, yet are among the most likely to lose out to a scam or cyber attack. Chris Sheehan is Executive Group Investigations and Fraud at NAB. He also spent 27 years at the Australian Federal Police, so has a unique insight into this problem. Chris, welcome to Fear and Greed.
Hi, how are you?
Look, how big a problem do we have with scams? We hear about them, we talk about them. Just how big is the issue?
So I call it a global crime epidemic or a global crime wave. That is not hyperbole and that is not exaggeration. This is a massive problem. In the UK, the government there has classified the fraud and scams problems that they are facing as a national security issue. We are in the same position here, and whilst the government here hasn't said that yet, to your intro, the impact of this across our society, across our community is enormous. There'll be very, very few people who are listening to this right now who haven't at least been targeted at least once by these organised crime groups.
Are there many, many more now than previously? Why is it that the ATO just keeps ringing me with a recorded message saying I owe money?
Well, maybe you do, Sean. We've got to check that out first.
Good point. I hadn't thought of that. Yeah.
No, look, the reason for this is that there definitely are many more scams around now than there was, say, 5 to 10 years ago. Partly that's because we have moved to a true digital economy. Everything is done online now, not just banking, but sharing of information, communications, business of all kinds, purchasing. Everything is in an online environment, in a digital environment. And whilst that comes with enormous convenience for consumers and for governments and for businesses, it also creates a lot more opportunities for criminal groups to access vastly more potential victims at very little financial cost to themselves, comparably little financial cost to themselves, and even less risk of apprehension. So the way we live, particularly in modern Western societies like Australia, has unfortunately lent itself to exploitation by criminal groups.
What are some of the most brazen scams you've seen?
Wow. Look, one that's been doing the rounds over the last few months has been a really significant problem for NAB, but for other banks as well, are the impersonation, phishing/spoofing scams that we've seen. So these ones involve a customer receiving a text message which appears to come from their bank, let's say NAB in this case, because it drops into the legitimate text thread on their phone that says NAB. And typically what it will do is it will tell the customer, I'll ask the customer to click on a link. Customer will click on the link, it will give them a phone number. In the text message, it will also say a version of there's been an unusual transaction on your account or your account has been compromised. When the customer clicks on the link, they then go to a phone number, they ring the phone number, and they will speak to who they believe is a NAB, either fraud centre operative or a NAB employee of some kind who will have a story for them. The crux of that story is your account's compromised. We've very helpfully opened another account for you to transfer your money to keep it safe. Customers will then transfer their money across, and in a number of these cases, as soon as they've done that, the person they're speaking to, who is of course the scammer, will tell them that, bad luck, you've been scammed, I've got your money, how stupid are you, and terminate the phone call, and the customer has lost their money.
And does it happen? People do lose their money?
Yes, they do. Without going into exact numbers for NAB, across industry, we're talking about millions and millions of dollars that are being lost to these types of scams over the last few months.
So, if I get one of and I have received a text message from my bank, which was in line with the previous text messages I've got. I looked at what they wanted me to push on, and that wasn't familiar, so I did nothing. What do you do? If in doubt, is it all about doing nothing but ring your bank off the number that you should be ringing them? Like, what should I have done?
Sean, you did exactly the right thing in terms of not actioning anything. What I always say is the digital economy, digital environment, digital banking brings enormously more benefits than it does disadvantages, but there are risks. And one of the things I tell people is be curious and suspicious about anything you get via a text message, a WhatsApp, an email, or even a phone call. Be curious, ask questions, and if it comes with it, if what comes with it is a call to action to click on a link or a call to move money to another account, and creates that sense of urgency that if you don't do something, something bad will happen, do not act on it. The one thing to bear in mind here is that if you leave your money in your bank account and someone somehow manages to actually hack into your account and steal your money, and you have no role in that, you don't conduct the payment yourself, you don't provide any of your credentials or passwords or anything like that. If that's just a straight out external hack into your account and you lose your money, your bank will pay you back.
Yeah.
Your bank will accept liability for that. But the moment you hit send on the payment, or you share your banking credentials, your login details or tokens, well, that becomes an authorised payment then. And the reality is it's most unlikely that your bank will A, repay you for any loss, and B, because of how quickly these crooks move the money out of recipient accounts, that will ever get your money back for you.
So don't panic, in a sense, is kind of a first point of call.
Yeah, spot on. Don't panic. Like, literally stop and wait. Nothing bad will happen if your money is in your bank account.
Stay with me, Chris. We'll be back in a minute. My guest this morning is Chris Sheehan, Executive Group Investigations and Fraud at National Australia Bank. So who are running the scams? Are they all overseas operators?
Look, no. There's certainly still in Australia individual con men and con women running their various schemes, and even smaller groups. But the industrialisation of scams, as we see it happening in Australia and other Western countries now, it's all being run by sophisticated transnational organised crime groups based all over the world, but we see concentrations of them in parts of Asia, Eastern Europe, and the subcontinent. Now, when I say we see concentrations, that's where we see, for example, the large, and people would have seen some of these on YouTube videos and other things, like the large call centres with people operating off computers like you would in any call centre, and phones and all that sort of thing. Those are the bread and butter and tools of these organised crime groups, but no one should think that those people who are doing that work are anything more than pawns in the game themselves.
Yep.
They're easily replaceable and they're absolutely expendable. The big fish, I suppose, at the top of the chain, these are individuals who live in all different parts of the world, and are have created structures that distance them from the people who are actually doing the dirty work.
Okay, so as individuals, we all have responsibilities to do all we can to not get scammed. What about as a bank, as a telco, as a big tech platform provider? What responsibility does big business have to prevent this?
In my view, a lot. And I like the way that you phrased the question, because often when I talk to people about this issue, it really is, what are the banks doing? And why don't the banks just take full accountability for this? And I guess the first thing I'd say is banks absolutely have a responsibility, and I'll talk about some of those things in a moment that we need to do, and I'll even talk about some of the things we could do better. But it is a broader ecosystem than just the banks. And to your point, telecommunications companies, online platforms, messaging platforms, social media, government, and, being frank, consumers all have a role to play here in a Team Australia approach to this issue. What can banks do better? Look, there's definitely things we need to do around our monitoring of payments and our ability to identify payments that look risky and look as if they could be the product of a fraud or a scam. And I think banks globally, and particularly in Western countries like ours, have embraced the digital environment and digital technology for a whole range of reasons, predominantly driven by consumer appetite for wanting that technology. And we've probably, we facilitated the rapid movement of funds via the payment systems. What we need to do now is recognise that the environment has changed, and we need to implement increasing amounts of appropriate friction in those payment channels so the payments may not go as quickly as customers are accustomed to. At NAB, we've done some work on that recently. We announced the implementation of payment prompts on our internet banking and mobile banking payment channels. What that does is, when we see a payment occurring in internet banking or mobile banking, if it looks suspicious, it will trigger a prompt to the customer in the moment that they're making the payment that will tell the customer why we think the payment looks concerning to us, and requires the customer to read through what they're being told and acknowledge it before they can proceed with the payment. So that's sort of process, I guess, I'm talking about in terms of introducing a bit more friction to slow things down to a level that it's still convenient, but we want to make it safer.
We're almost out of time, but I've got to ask you, the research by you guys, by National Australia Bank, shows that young people aged 18 to 29 are least concerned but most likely to lose out to a scam. Is that the exuberance of youth, perhaps? Or maybe they use digital platforms more than anyone else, therefore more likely to be scammed. What's behind that? That really surprised me.
So I think both of those points that you made are correct. I also think that a function of that is that we're talking about a generation that has grown up with mobile phones, smartphones, iPads, laptops, doing everything online, conducting all their relationships online. And so there's a degree of confidence that comes with having that, I guess, that technology in your DNA if you're in that age group. I am not. And I think with that degree of confidence comes complacency. And I think that's what's being exploited by these criminal groups is that complacency and the trust that age group has in the technology.
Incredible. Chris, thank you for talking to Fear and Greed.
Thank you.
That was Chris Sheehan, Executive Group Investigations and Fraud at National Australia Bank. This is the Fear and Greed Daily Interview. Join us every morning for a full episode of Fear and Greed, Australia's most popular business podcast. I'm Sean Aylmer. Enjoy your day.